The dying light captain, Elena Vasquez, had been hauling cargo through the outer sectors for 12 years. And in all that time, she'd never seen her ship's communication array behave like this. The Iron Resolve was an old Terran heavy hauler, built tough and simple, the kind of vessel that kept running on duct tape and stubbornness. Long after more sophisticated ships had given up the ghost, Captain called out Marcus Webb, her communications officer, his voice tight with confusion. "I'm picking up something that shouldn't be possible." Alina set down her coffee and moved to his station. The communication console was lighting up, like a Christmas tree, displaying patterns she'd never seen before. What kind of impossible? It's a transmission, but it's coming through quantum foam fluctuations. Our equipment shouldn't even be able to detect this, let alone decode it. Marcus ran his hands through his graying hair. The frequency it's like someone's screaming directly into the fabric of space-time. Dr. Sarah Chen, the ship's science officer and Elena's old friend from the academy, joined them. She was supposed to be studying mineral compositions for the colonial survey, but curiosities like this always drew her attention. "Show me the waveform." The display shifted to show a pattern that seemed almost alive, undulating, waves that pulsed, with a rhythm that felt disturbingly organic. "This isn't random," Sarah whispered. "There's intelligence behind this. Desperate intelligence." Alina felt a chill run down her spine. In space, desperation was usually a prelude to death. "Can we clean it up?" Marcus worked his controls with the skill of someone who'd coaxed signals out of cosmic background radiation for decades. The Iron Resolve might be primitive by galactic standards, but its crew knew how to make the most of what they had. Slowly, impossibly, words began to form in the static. By the void, Marcus breathed. "It's in perfect standard." But how could anyone out here know? The voice that emerged from the speakers was unlike anything they'd ever heard. It was melodic, hauntingly beautiful, but carried an undertone of absolute terror that made everyone on the bridge freeze. 2. Any who can hear this transmission, we are the Kethmori. We who have watched the stars sing for 10 million years. We who have touched the dreams of sleeping worlds. ... We are dying, not death, as you know, it erasure, complete and total removal from the tapestry of existence. Alina exchanged glances with her crew. The Kethmori were legend, myth, stories told by drunk spacers about ancient beings who had achieved transcendence eons ago. No one had ever proved they existed. The voice continued, growing weaker. They call themselves the Silence. They do not destroy, they unmake. Planets, stars, entire civilizations, erased so completely that the universe itself forgets they ever existed. We have hidden in the spaces between thoughts, in the gaps of reality, but they have found us at last. Sarah was frantically working her instruments. "Elena, this transmission, it's not just coming through normal space. It's multidimensional. Whoever's sending this has technology that makes the most advanced species look like children with stone tools. We send this message knowing it dooms any who receive it." The Kethmori voice continued. "The Silence can trace quantum consciousness paths. By hearing our words, by understanding our plight, you have become marked. They will come for you next." The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of life support systems. Alina felt her heart pounding. "Keep recording," she ordered. "But perhaps there is hope. We have observed your species, humans of Terra. You are young, chaotic, unpredictable. Where we sought perfection and order, you embrace the random and illogical. The Silence understands patterns, feeds on sophistication and predictability. But your minds Your minds are gloriously, beautifully broken. You might be the only ones who can see what we cannot. The transmission was breaking up, filled with interference that sounded almost like screaming. Our coordinates follow. Save yourselves. Save the galaxy. Remember us, so that something of what we were survives the dying of the light. A string of numbers followed, then silence. Alina stared at the communications console for a long moment. Marcus, how wide was the transmission? Unknown, Captain. If it was sent through quantum foam, it could have reached every corner of the galaxy simultaneously. Sarah, plot those coordinates. Dr. Chen worked quickly. It's pointing to the Kepler void, about 47 light-years from here. That region's been marked as empty space for the last 2 centuries. Nothing there but background radiation and dark matter. Alina walked to her command chair, her mind racing. The smart thing would be to report this to Earth Fleet Command and let someone else handle it. But something in that alien voice haunted her. The resignation, the desperate hope that someone, somewhere, might be able to help when all seemed lost. Captain, Marcus said quietly, I'm detecting other ships altering course toward those coordinates. My sensors are picking up at least a dozen vessels, but they're using drive signatures I don't recognize. Alina made her decision. Plot a course for the Kepler void. Maximum burn. Alina, Sarah said carefully, we're a cargo hauler. We've got basic shields and a few mining lasers. If what that transmission described is real, then we're probably all dead anyway, Alina finished. But maybe being a simple cargo hauler is exactly what we need right now. Marcus, send a priority burst to Earth Fleet. Full encryption. Tell them about this transmission and where we're headed. The Iron Resolve turned toward the Kepler void, her aging nuclear engines pushing her to speeds that made the hull groan. In protest. As they traveled, more details of the Kathmori message became clear. The silence weren't just another hostile alien species, they were something worse. A force that could reach back in time and erase the very possibility of existence. 3 days later, they dropped out of FTL at the edge of the coordinates and immediately understood why the region was called a void, where star charts showed empty space. Their sensors revealed something far worse, perfectly spherical bubbles of absolute nothingness. Not black holes, not nebulae, but zones where reality itself had been deleted. My God, whispered Sarah. Those are stellar graveyards. The silence didn't just destroy those stars, they made it so they never existed in the first place. Alina studied the tactical display. What about other ships? Detecting multiple vessels hiding throughout the system, Marcus reported. I count at least 20 different species, including several I've never seen before. Most are maintaining radio silence and keeping their distance from ... On the main screen, at the center of the void, was something that hurt to look at directly. It wasn't quite visible and wasn't quite invisible, a writhing mass of unreality that seemed to exist in too many dimensions at once. Around it, like frightened children, dozens of alien ships maintained careful perimeters. Incoming transmission, Marcus announced. It's coming from a hegemony dreadnought. Admiral class. The screen flickered to show an imposing figure, Admiral Zektar of the hegemony. First Fleet. The hegemony were among the most militarily advanced species in the galaxy, their ships capable of glassing entire worlds. That one of their admirals was here meant the situation was even worse than Alina had imagined. Human vessel, Zektar's voice was tight with controlled fear. You should not have come. This is beyond military solution. Admiral Alina replied respectfully. We received the Kethmori distress call. We're here to help. Asterisk, Zektar's mandibles clicked the hegemony equivalent of bitter laughter. Help, Captain. I have brought the most powerful fleet in hegemony history. Weapons that can crack continents, shields that can absorb the energy of dying stars. Against the silence, we are helpless as newborns. Tell us what you've learned. The alien admiral's expression grew. Haunted, they are not alive as we understand life. They are anti-existence itself. Their weapons don't destroy matter, they convince reality that the matter was never there to begin with. Watch. The screen showed a recording from earlier in the day. A brave hegemony cruiser had fired its main weapons at one of the Silence. Entities' lances of pure energy that should have vaporized anything in their path. But as the beams touched the creature, they simply weren't. Not blocked. Not absorbed. They ceased to have ever existed. Worse, Zektar continued, they seemed to grow stronger when faced with advanced technology. The more sophisticated our weapons, the more easily they turn our own power against us. Elena felt a spark of an idea forming. Admiral, what if sophisticated technology is exactly the problem? Explain. The Kethmori message mentioned that humans are chaotic and unpredictable. What if the Silence can't unmake what they can't understand? What if being primitive is actually an advantage? Zektar was quiet for a long moment. It is possible. During the initial encounter, several civilian vessels managed to escape. All were using older, simpler technology. We assumed they were simply beneath notice. Alina turned to her crew. Sarah, what's the most primitive probe we have in storage? We've got some old survey drones. Chemical rockets, basic cameras, no quantum processing at all. Launch 1. Let's see what happens. They watched tensely as the simple probe approached. The writhing mass of unreality at the system's center. Advanced hegemony sensors would have been detected and eliminated instantly. But the crude human device passed completely unnoticed. It's working, Sarah breathed. The probe's actually getting close enough to take readings. What they saw made everyone on both ships fall silent. Hidden within the mass of Silence entities was a structure clearly artificial, clearly damaged, and clearly Kethmori in origin. It was beautiful beyond description, like crystallized music made solid, but parts of it were already fading from existence. There are survivors, Alina said quietly. We can see life signs inside that structure. Admiral Zektar's image leaned forward. Captain, even if that's true, mounting a rescue is impossible. Any ship that gets too close will be unmade. Elena studied the probe data, her mind working furiously. The iron resolve was old, simple, built with technology that was practically medieval by galactic standards. Her weapons were kinetic projectiles and chemical explosives. Her shields were basic, electromagnetic barriers. Her computer systems were so primitive they still used binary code. For the first time in her career, Elena Vasquez was grateful that humanity was considered the backwards cousin of galactic civilization. Admiral, she said finally, I'm going. In, Captain, that's suicide. Alina smiled grimly. Maybe, but if the Silence feeds on sophisticated technology and can't process chaotic thinking, then a ship full of crazy humans using stupid technology might be exactly what this situation needs. As the Iron Resolve began its approach toward the heart of the void, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to either save the galaxy or get itself erased from existence, entirely, either way. It was going to be one hell of a ride, *, the Deathworld, solution, the iron resolve, moved through space toward the silence entities with all the grace and sophistication of a thrown brick. Her chemical thrusters coughed and sputtered. Her hull groaned under acceleration that more advanced ships would manage effortlessly, and her primitive sensors painted a picture of reality that was probably only half accurate on a good day. It was exactly what they needed. Distance to target, 2,000 kilometers and closing, Marcus reported, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his forehead. The silence entities. They're not reacting to us. Alina watched the tactical display with growing amazement. The writhing mass of unreality that had terrified a dozen different species was completely ignoring their approach. It's like we're beneath their notice, or outside their comprehension, Dr. Chen added, studying her instruments with fascination. Alina, these readings are impossible. The silence entities exist in 11 dimensions simultaneously, but their consciousness is based on pure mathematical logic. They're trying to process us, but our chaotic human thought patterns are creating computational paradoxes. Through the cum system, Admiral Zektar's voice crackled with static. Human vessel, you're actually approaching the core structure. How is this possible? Because we're too stupid to know it's impossible, Alina replied with a grin that was equal parts terror and exhilaration. Sarah, what are you reading from the Kethmori structure? Life signs, definitely. And Alina, ... They're trying to communicate. Sarah's instruments were jury-rigged combinations of human technology and salvaged alien components, exactly the kind of chaotic hybrid that should never work but somehow did. It's coming through ... music. The bridge filled with a sound like crystalline wind chimes mixed with whale song. Beautiful, haunting, and utterly alien. But underneath the melody, Alina could hear something else. Hope. They know we're here, she whispered. Marcus, any way to establish two-way communication? Working on it, Captain. Our cum system wasn't designed for multi-dimensional beings, but I'm routing everything through the ship's intercom and hoping for the best. The music shifted, becoming more structured, and words began to emerge. Humans, you came. We felt your minds touch ours through the quantum foam. So chaotic, so beautifully unpredictable. The silence cannot fathom your thought patterns. Alina keyed the intercom. We're here to get you out. How many survivors? 17,000 of our kind remain, but we are trapped. The silence have woven reality chains around our sanctuary. Any attempt to break free triggers complete erasure protocols. Alina studied the probe data. The Kethmori structure was indeed surrounded by geometric patterns of pure mathematics reality, made solid and used as a cage. What would happen if we disrupted those patterns? Chaos would ensue, came the melodic reply. Complete unpredictability. The silence would be forced to recalculate everything, but the process might destroy us. Alina felt that familiar spark of human inspiration, the kind of lateral thinking that had gotten humanity into trouble throughout its history, and occasionally gotten them out of it too. What if chaos is exactly what we need? She turned to her crew. Marcus, can you rig our cum system to broadcast random noise on all frequencies? Sarah, I need you to calculate the most illogical approach vector to that structure. Make it completely unpredictable. Alina, Sarah said carefully, what are you planning? The silence think in patterns and logic. They're like the ultimate computer-perfect processing power, but no imagination. So we're going to give them something no computer can handle. Pure human chaos. Admiral Zektar's voice came through the cum, heavy with disbelief. Captain, surely you don't intend to, Admiral. Get every ship in the system ready to move. When we create our distraction, you'll have one chance to extract the survivors." Alina turned to Marcus. "Broadcast this message on all channels. All vessels, prepare for coordinated rescue operation. Follow the crazy humans and do exactly what we do, even when it makes no sense." The Iron Resolve began broadcasting every piece of chaotic information it could generate. Random number sequences, fragments of human music, poetry read backwards, mathematical equations solved incorrectly on purpose. The cacophony of meaningless data filled the quantum foam around the silence. Entities, and something extraordinary happened. The writhing mass of unreality began to ... stutter. The perfect geometric patterns around Kethmori's structure flickered. As the silence tried to process the incoming chaos and found themselves unable to categorize it. "They're confused," Sarah reported with amazement. "The silence are trying to incorporate our randomness into their logical framework, but it's creating recursive loops. They're actually freezing up." Alina grinned fiercely. "All ships, this is Iron Resolve. Execute pattern KS Alpha." What followed was the most bizarrely beautiful space battle in galactic history. The hegemony dreadnought began firing its weapons in completely random directions, not at targets, but at empty space, creating unpredictable energy patterns. A crystalline collective ship started broadcasting interpretive dance through its light arrays. Even the stoic Vorthan Confederacy vessels began ejecting cargo pods in spiraling patterns that followed no tactical logic whatsoever. Asterisk. The silence entities, creatures of pure mathematical perfection, found themselves faced with a coordinated effort that made absolutely no sense by any logical standard. Their processing systems overloaded, trying to predict the unpredictable. The reality chains are destabilizing. The Kethmori voice sang through the cum. "Your chaos is unraveling the mathematical locks." But the silence weren't defenseless. As their confusion mounted, they began to adapt, trying to counter chaos with even greater order. Reality around the Kethmori structure began to crystallize, becoming so rigidly logical that it threatened to freeze everything in mathematical amber. "They're trying to impose absolute order," Sarah warned. "If they succeed, everything in this system will be locked into perfect stasis." Alina looked at her crew Marcus with his jury-rigged communications array, Sarah with her impossible hybrid instruments, and the dozen other humans aboard who had followed her into the heart of madness. They were scared, exhausted, and completely out of their depth. They were perfect for this job. "Time for the ultimate human strategy," Alina announced. "We're going to do something so stupid that even we don't know why we're doing it." She turned to the ship's intercom. "All hands, this is the captain. I need everyone to do the most human thing possible. Ignore all logic, abandon all plans, and just ... improvise. Sing songs, tell jokes, argue about sports, whatever comes to mind. Fill this ship with the most chaotic, illogical, purely human energy you can generate." Within minutes, the Iron Resolve was broadcasting pure humanity into space. Someone was singing an off-key version of an old Earth ballad. The engineering crew was having a heated argument about whether hot dogs counted as sandwiches. Dr. Chen was reciting limericks while simultaneously calculating orbital mechanics in her head. It was beautiful. It was chaotic. It was completely, utterly human. And it broke the silence. The entities of pure logic, faced with the impossible complexity of human consciousness, the way humans could, simultaneously, think logically and illogically, could feel multiple contradictory emotions, could believe impossible things and somehow make them work, simply couldn't process it. One by one, the silence began to fade, not destroyed, but retreating into higher dimensions where they could try to make sense of what they had experienced. The geometric chains around the Kethmori structure dissolved like sugar in rain. Now, Alina shouted into the cum. All ships, extraction pattern Omega. What followed was organized chaos at its finest. Human ships darted between the failing silence entities, using their primitive but reliable technology to create escape. Corridors, hegemony vessels provided cover fire that was beautifully random. The crystalline collective ships formed a living light show that confused any remaining silence entities. And through it all, the Kethmori began to emerge from their crystalline sanctuary, beings of impossible beauty whose very presence seemed to make the universe more musical, more alive. Humans, their collective voice sang as their ships began to appear. We owe you a debt that spans dimensions. You have given us something we lost eons ago in our pursuit of perfection. What's that? Alina asked. The knowledge that chaos isn't the enemy of order, it's its partner in the dance of existence. As the last of the silence retreated into the higher dimensions, the assembled fleet found themselves alone in space that was once again normal, predictable, and wonderfully chaotic. Admiral Zektar's voice came through the cum, filled with something Alina had never heard from a hegemony officer before. Laughter. Captain Vasquez, he said, your species has just redefined our understanding of tactical doctrine. Who knew that the secret to defeating ultimate order was ultimate disorder? Alina looked around her bridge at her crew still arguing about hot dogs, still singing off-key, still being beautifully, chaotically human. Admiral, she replied, welcome to humanity. We've been confusing ourselves for millennia. We're just glad we could share the experience as the Iron Resolve began its journey back toward Earth. Now accompanied by representatives of 12 grateful species and 17,000 Kethmori who wanted to learn more about the beautiful chaos of human thought, Alina couldn't help but smile. Humanity had just become the galaxy's official problem solvers, and somehow that felt exactly right. After all, who better to handle the impossible than a species that had been doing impossible things since they first looked up at the stars and decided to visit them? The universe, it seemed, needed a little more chaos in its order, and humanity was perfectly qualified to provide it. Asterisk.